That's why I say it's now versus later. The traditional IRA, you pay taxes down the road based on your income. A Roth IRA, you pay your taxes now, and then this just grows and you know. Traditional versus Roth, okay? I'm going to give a general overview of this, guys, okay? Please understand that there is a lot of changes depending on your income level, depending on your job, your location, your tax rate, okay? I'm just going to give a general overview of a basic TLDR on the difference between a traditional versus a Roth. I like to call it just basically now versus later, okay? That's what a traditional versus Roth is. It's all about now versus later, okay? You're going to see what I'm talking about, okay? Please be good in chat because you guys are going to may be on a YouTube video, so I need you guys to be good, okay? All right. Let's talk about an IRA. Traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA. Generally speaking, it comes down to taxes, right? A traditional IRA is great if you are, if you want that taxable income to be lowered, right? So what's going to happen is your taxes on the IRA, okay, you're not going to pay those going into your IRA. Generally speaking, you're going to pay those down the line, whether it's when you hit 59 and a half or 60, or if they raise it to 70 or whatever. So this is you're going to put your money in. It's going to lower your taxable income now, but you're going to pay the taxes on this down the road. And that's going to come based on your taxable, your tax rate at the time you take them out. So let's say you get to that age and you are in a higher income tax level, right? You're in a higher tax bracket. You will pay more taxes. If you expect yourself to be living in a trailer with nothing to your name and you're in a lower tax bracket, generally you'll pay lower taxes. But what you're basically doing with your traditional is you're not paying taxes now, and you're allowing more money now to grow more, but you're also going to get hit on all of it at the end, okay? So if it's, let's say you're at 28%, 28% of everything is going to be wiped out, right, on taxes down the road. So you have more money to seed it with now, and you have a less of a tax burden now, which might be great. Maybe you're 18, 19, 20, and you need all the money you can get right now, right? And this helps bring your taxable income lower. But you're going to get hit down the line, right? So maybe you want to grow more, and then maybe you're going to get hit down the line. Maybe you're expecting to be in a very low tax bracket. Who knows? Maybe taxes are even higher. Who knows? 30 years from now, maybe income tax for anybody making over a certain amount, or for everybody for let's say, because I know in Europe, tax, income tax or tax on especially capital gains and investments is super high. Who knows? Maybe it goes high. Maybe it goes lower. Who knows? With a Roth IRA, okay, what you're doing is you're paying your capital gains tax. You're paying your tax now, okay? But that means you don't pay any tax down the road, right? So you may start with a smaller amount than you do here, but you keep everything you make. So that's the difference. And that's why I like a Roth IRA more than a traditional if you can afford the burden now of paying that tax, because everything that goes in here that you invest in trade, you keep. Okay? The only way you lose any of this is if you have to pull money out before the end time, and at that point it's about 10%. Generally speaking. Now, there are some exceptions, guys. If it's medical or a house or whatnot, you can withdraw money depending on where you are, what kind of IRA you have. You can withdraw money for those things. This year, they allowed you to pull out up to $100,000 penalty free because of COVID and whatnot, okay? But that's where it's at. Now, obviously, if you early withdraw these things, guys, you also get hit with taxes as well, okay? So understand that there is some other things, especially with the traditional. If you take out the traditional early, you really get hit hard. But I'm not trying to get into the specifics of it. Obviously, I'm just trying to give a very quick overview, okay? So that's why I say it's now versus later. The traditional IRA, you pay taxes down the road based on your income. A Roth IRA, you pay your taxes now, and then this just grows and you know. I could bring up the Roth calculator and you guys could see what I'm talking about, okay? So let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. All right, so let's say your current balance is at 0. You max it out every year. Let's say it's 7% on the low end, even though it's higher. You're 18, you're 21 now. Okay, look at the difference here. So you're gonna see. So equivalence of today's purchasing power, here's where you are, okay? Here is where your difference is, right? So in a Roth IRA, you're going to have much less, but this one you're going to have to to pay taxes on traditional. Okay, after tax, obviously it comes back down. You end up making more money on the traditional because you're putting more money in, right? Which is allowing that compounding to continue on. However, for somebody like me, because I want to have that guarantee, I prefer the Roth, right? Because after taxes, they're almost the same. You do have about 150,000 more on the traditional as compared to a Roth. However, this is based on what the tax rate is now. We don't know what the tax rate's going to be, right? Like if you do tax rate, let's say your tax rate at retirement is 25%, right? Now you're even. Let's say your tax rate is I don't know, 30% just for shits and giggles, right? Let's say it goes up, it starts to go down. Okay, so that's kind of why I like to say, you know, it really depends on where you're expecting to be and what happens with the tax rate from a law standpoint down the road. Okay, all right. So there's a lot of other nuances involved in this. This is just a basic rundown of traditional versus Roth, right? Tax now or tax later, okay? And that brings us into the 401k, but this one gets a little bit more complicated, okay? It's a little bit more complicated. Some people actually put 50% in here and 50% in here. Some people like to do that. They like to have money that grows exponentially here, and they like to put money here that they have the ability to. It depends on the person, your ability, what you're offered, and how you want to work it out. I prefer, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, Stocky, choose between a traditional or Roth, I'd go Roth every time, but that's because I like knowing what I'm getting. I don't like the uncertainty of something changing down the road. I mean, what if I still, you know, what if I don't own my house outright? What if I have kids or I have, you know, whatever? You never know. There's so many unknowns. But some people, especially people who need money more, prefer the traditional now because of the tax, the income tax, you know, the less tax they have to pay in the short term. Okay, now 401k gets a little bit more complicated. A 401k, a traditional 401k versus a Roth 401k. Okay, same basic thing. Traditional 401k, in this case, you pay your taxes. You don't pay your taxes now, right? You don't pay your taxes now. You pay them at the end, okay? This is super important because your employer, generally, if you don't have a shit employer, they will match up to certain contributions, right? So you get your, let's say, $2,000, and they match $2,000, and that just grows over time. And as long as you have a good plan and you're not paying too much in management fees or expense ratio fees, and then you pay your income tax at the end, that's good. But here is where it gets a little complicated. With a Roth 401k, it's very similar to the traditional IRA. Why? Taxes come out and you make the money. However, that's for your contribution, not for your employer's contribution. Your 50% match gets taxed at the end. So your contributions get taxed in the beginning. Your employer, generally speaking, doesn't apply for them. So this is what you have to decide the same thing. If your employer doesn't do a match or doesn't do a great match, a Roth 401k is great, right? So for those of you guys who are like, Stocky, I'm not telling you which one to pick. I'm just giving you an overview. For those of you guys who work for an employer who doesn't do a good match or doesn't match at all, but offers a Roth 401k, there you go, right? You get your tax. It's just like an IRA. Taxes out now, and then you get to just let it roll through time, right? If your employer matches and it's a good amount, then you have to make a decision. Also, the cool thing about the Roth 401k is if you end up like becoming a CEO and you make too much money, right, and they don't allow you to do contributions to your IRA, there are ways that you can actually roll your Roth 401k into your IRA without actually having to worry about the cap on your income to allow that, because you're rolling it rather than directly funding it. Now, obviously, this is a very general overview of traditional versus Roths. The most important thing to remember is Roth is you pay taxes now. Traditional is paying taxes later. Which one's better for you is up to you. If you need to have more money now, or you need your taxes lowered, now, obviously, traditional, for some people, they like it. Younger people, a lot of times, like traditional because it lowers their tax burden right now. But if you can afford it, a lot of times, Roth is a lot better because you just get the taxes out of the way now and then just let that go. Then you could look at your portfolio and never have to calculate the taxes of, well, how much am I actually going to have to retirement? You're like, bitch, this is what I got, and this is where we're going. Okay? So that's basically where it's at.